Good evening and welcome. I'm Danita Terry, Vice President of the Maryland Women's Heritage Center Board of Directors. Thank you for joining us this evening. The Maryland Women Heritage Center is a nonprofit organization committed to recognizing, respecting, and transmitting the experiences and contributions of women of diverse backgrounds from all regions of the state. We add her story to his story to tell our story. Honoring our mission and Black History Month, tonight we are celebrating the Black women who sought to have a say in the political process. At this moment in our country's history, unprecedented numbers of women are running for office and winning elections. Consider that 4 years ago, women from all across the country were marching in cities, and 4 years later, we have a Black woman as our vice president. Couple that with the strides that Stacey Abrams made in Georgia, and you can see the importance of recording this history. We will begin by calling the names of the women who served in elected offices in the state of Maryland. We think our research may be pretty good, but we may have unintentionally omitted some names. So if there is a name that was not mentioned, please add it in the chat and we'll do our best to call the name before the evening is over.
Mary Adams, Victorine Q. Adams, Vanessa E. Atterbury, Candace Bacchus-Hollingsworth, Elsie Barber, J. Sandy Bartlett, Joanne C. Benson, Hildegardis Boswell, Chanel R. Branch, Aisha N. Braveboy, Jill P. Carter Esquire, Joan Carter Conway, Charlotte Crutchfield Esquire, Deborah M. Davis Esquire, Irma George Dixon, Sheila Dixon, Diana M. Fennell, Juanica B. Fisher Esquire, Lisa A. Gladden, Cheryl Glenn, Melanie G. Griffith, Andrea Fletcher Harrison, Hattie N. Harrison, Shanika T. Henson Esquire, Dr. Terry L. Hill, Carolyn J. B. Howard, Brenda B. Hughes, Adrian A. Jones, Christine M. Jones, Verna L. Jones Rodwell, Dolores G. Kelly, Ruth M. Kirk, Gloria Gary Lawla, Lena K. Lee, Robin T. Lewis, Salima Seiler Marriott, Danielle McCrae, Sharon Green Middleton, Dr. Juanita Miller, Margaret Peggy Murphy, Felicia Porter, Shirley Nathan Pulliam, Dr. Edith Jerry Patterson, Joseline A. Pena Melnick, Elizabeth G. Susie Proctor, Pamela E. Queen, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, Barbara A. Robinson, Cherie L. Sample Hughes, Stephanie M. Smith Esquire, Dr. Brenda Thiam, Beatrice P. Tignor, Veronica L. Turner, Mary L. Washington, Carmina F. Watson, Verda F. Welcome, Melissa R. Wells, Janelle K. Wilkins, Nicole A. Williams. Now let's take a moment to applaud these trailblazers. We are giving special attention to these four trailblazers. Victorine Quill Adams. Victorine Adams was the first Black woman to serve on the Baltimore City Council, representing the 4th District, a seat she held for 4 terms. In 1979, while on the council, she created the Baltimore Fuel Fund, a heating and utility assistance program for those with limited income. Adams served as a member of the National Council of Negro Women, was a delegate to the 1964 Democratic National Convention, and served as a local election campaign director for President Lyndon B. Johnson. Educated at the Coppin Normal School and Morgan State College, part of Adams' career was spent as a Baltimore public school teacher. In 1943, Adams was among the group of women who chartered the National Council of Negro Women Baltimore section. In 1946, she founded the Colored Women's Democratic Campaign Committee. The CWDCC encouraged women to register to vote and recruited them to run for public office. In 1948, Adams conducted a register to vote drive, registering more than 4,000 voters in 1 month. Between 1963 and 64, she directed a registration drive which added 30,000 new voters. Adams also ran a successful campaign for a seat in the Maryland House of Delegates in 1966. Adams is a Maryland Women's Hall of Fame inductee. More information about this trailblazer can be found in the book Baltimore Civil Rights Leader Victorine Q. Adams, The Power of the Ballot, authored by Maryland Women's Heritage Center board member, Dr. Ida E. Jones. Verda Freeman Welcome. Verda Welcome was a teacher, civil rights leader, and the first Black woman to serve as Maryland State Senator. She was the second Black woman in the nation to serve as a state senator. Welcome received her bachelor's degree from Morgan State College and a master's degree in history from New York University. Welcome's 25-year career in the Maryland legislature began in 1958 when she won her seat to the Maryland House of Delegates, representing Baltimore City's 4th District. After serving as delegate, she ran a successful bid for Maryland State Senator in 1962. During her tenure as senator, an assassination attempt was made on her life. Surviving that attempt, she continued her efforts to eliminate desegregation and other social injustices. She was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention in 1968, 1972, and 1976. And she served in political office until her retirement in 1982. Welcome was inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame in 1988. More about Welcome's life can be found in My Life in Times, a biography by James M. Abraham. It is almost impossible to talk about Black women's political successes without discussing political activism. The early exclusion of Black women from traditional means of political involvement, such as voting and holding office, meant they sought out non-traditional activities to effect change. From pre-emancipation organizing tactics to the activist efforts of the modern era, non-traditional political work of Black women has included, but has not been limited to, writing editorial pieces about slavery, lynching, and segregation, establishing the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, opening educational institutions for Black, Native, and female students, and leading the civil and women's rights movements. And Gloria Richardson, a resident of Cambridge, Maryland, was one of the women who answered the call. Gloria St. Clair Hayes Richardson was from a prominent Eastern Shore, Maryland family. Her mother's family owned and operated a successful grocery store and funeral home. Her maternal grandfather served on the Cambridge City Council from 1912 to 1946, the first African American to be elected to this office. Richardson attended Howard University, where she engaged in her first act of disobedience, when she picketed a segregated Woolworth store in Washington, D.C. After receiving her degree, she returned to Cambridge, married, and focused on her family and civic work. In 1961, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, aka SNCC, came to Cambridge to organize civil rights actions. Richardson wanted to support her daughter, who was supporting the demonstrators, but she didn't fully accept SNCC's nonviolent rules. Nonetheless, in June 1962, Richardson was asked to help organize the Cambridge Nonviolent Action Committee, the first adult-led SNCC affiliate. She would go on to become its official spokesperson. In 1963, the Cambridge protests had garnered major attention. Local businesses and officials appealed to Governor J. Mallard Taws. He imposed martial law and asked President Kennedy to order the National Guard. On June 11th, white segregationists attacked 6 white and Black demonstrators. And at 8 p.m. that night, a freedom walk was staged, and again, the crowd was attacked. The federal government once again intervened to put an end to the violence and protest. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy and other Justice Department officials came to Cambridge to quell the unrest by drafting the Treaty of Cambridge, which included a statement for equal rights. Richardson was among the members of the local Black leadership who were signatories of the treaty. In August of 1963, Richardson was recognized as one of 6 Negro women fighters for freedom, who was featured but not granted the opportunity to speak at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. By the fall of 1963, Black children in Cambridge were attending previously all-white schools. Bus transportation was desegregated, as well as the library and hospital. More about Gloria Richardson's life can be found in the book, The Struggle is Eternal, Gloria Richardson and Black Liberation by Joseph Fitzgerald. Beatrice B. Gaddy. B. Gaddy began her career in Baltimore in the early 1970s when she began working for the East Baltimore Children's Fund. In 1981, she started the Patterson Park Emergency Food Center, personally collecting food donations from local churches in a shopping cart and distributing them to neighbors in need. Gaddy even used her $250 lottery winnings to serve nearly 40 neighbors Thanksgiving dinner. It was the beginning of the B. Gaddy Thanks for Giving campaign, an annual tradition in Baltimore that served 3,000 meals on site and delivered 50,000 to those unable to travel. Gaddy's service to her community included collecting toys and shoes, creating a furniture bank, and a program to renovate abandoned row houses. She even became a minister so she could provide marriage and burial services free of charge. She was also involved in voter education and summer youth programs and was elected to the Baltimore City Council in 1999. Gaddy received numerous awards for her dedication to community service, including the Unsung Hero Award, the Afro-American Woman of the Year Award, and the Baltimore Best Award. In 1992, President George H.W. Bush named her one of his 1,000 Points of Light. While Gaddy received a degree in human services from Antioch University, she received a doctorate of humane letters from Towson State University and the Frederick Douglass Award from the University System of Maryland Board of Regents. You can learn more about B. Gaddy in the Preservation Maryland podcast series, Ballot and Beyond.
What an extremely rich history. And these are only some of the women that worked to pave the way in Maryland. They showed that women, specifically women of color, are aptly capable of serving in elected office and championing the causes of their constituents for the betterment of their communities. We will now look forward as our panelists discuss how we can continue to move the needle forward. Each of them are leaders who are making a difference in the political realm, locally and nationally. Our moderator for the discussion is Ms. Dorothy Bailey, who has an extraordinary record of public service at the county, state, and national levels. She was a senior official in several government agencies in Prince George's County, and later was elected to the county council, where she served twice as chair. She co-founded several national civic advocacy groups and authored an award-winning book on Maryland women of color. She was lauded by Washingtonian Magazine as one of the area's most powerful women, and she was inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame in 2014. Please welcome Dorothy Bailey, who will introduce our panelists and begin the discussion.
Thank you very much, Danita. Thank you for the information that you shared with us. But I must add immediately that we did not have the county executive of Prince George's County, Angela Alsabrook, in that list of notables, but there are others as well that we're going to add as we continue our discussion. Let me tell you, Danita will find any way possible to celebrate and salute women throughout the state of Maryland. And I want to commend her on that effort. She works tirelessly, finding women to have discussions, to celebrate, to salute. And tonight, that's what we're going to do. We're going to hear from some very, very dynamic women throughout the state of Maryland. And I think you're going to be very excited about hearing their stories and stories that they have to share with us. Well, let's get going. And I'm not going to introduce everybody. I'm going to ask you to talk about yourselves. And that's one of the things I've discovered that we don't do a very good job of. So I'm giving you some instructions. I don't want just your name or two things about you. I want folk to know who you are and what you do. Now, I will start with Chairwoman Yvette Lewis. I will say that she is chair of the Maryland Democratic Party. And Chair Lewis, that's all I'm going to say about you. And so now it's your turn.
So very nice to see all of you. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. And you're right, we don't talk about ourselves enough. I think we were taught that, you sort of sit back and let others say things about you. And maybe we need to start learning how to say more about ourselves, particularly as women and especially as Black women. I am the product of the South. I grew up in North Carolina. I graduated from Howard University. I'm an AKA, I'm a mother. I'm a wife, I'm a community servant, someone who enjoys being in the community and doing things for the community. I'm a former opera singer, a former educator. My life makes absolutely no sense at all, but in a way, the whole world is a stage. And somehow we have to find that stage that best suits us. And even though my stage started in the opera field and then went to educating children, this stage that I sit on now in politics and doing what we can to bring forth the best leaders that we can to save our democracy now, but to lead us forward into the future, that's still my stage now. And that's where I seem to be most comfortable. So that's what I'll say about me.
Well, you did a pretty good job. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Let's go to Mrs. Tiffany Gardner, and she is CEO of ReflectUs. And so it's your turn.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here tonight and follow behind Chairwoman Lewis. It's always a pleasure for me to do. So I'm Tiffany Gardner. I live in New York City. I am the CEO of ReflectUs, which is a national nonpartisan organization working across the country to get more women elected at the local, state, and national level. So that's the official byline. About me, I've been doing grassroots organizing for the past 20 years all across this world, this globe. I started my work as an undergraduate at Yale University in post-apartheid South Africa, working with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, working with townships in South Africa. From there, I worked all over West Africa, largely looking at and trying to help women, women in development. Worked at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland for a while. Then worked in Southeast Asia and Cambodia, working with women who were survivors of domestic violence and survivors of sex trafficking. Around that time, Hurricane Katrina hit. I myself am a very proud daughter of the South. My father was from Alabama, my mother from Florida. And all the time that I was doing international work, I kept hearing, well, we have problems in this country too. So Hurricane Katrina hit. I came home from, I believe I was in Phnom Penh, Cambodia at the time, and started doing base roots, grassroots organizing in the Gulf Coast, New Orleans, Biloxi, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, and kind of haven't stopped. I'm a firm believer in coalition building and the power of people to make change. So after I did the work in New Orleans, I started my own not-for-profit called the One World Exchange. And we send young people of color abroad for the summer to do human rights and development work. And from there, I got a call from ReflectUs, and they said, we've heard about you. We've heard about your coalition work, both in this country and outside of this country. And we think you would be the best person to lead this coalition. And so that's what I've been doing for the past year. A large part of our work at ReflectUs is getting women elected, but in particular, we're looking at the economic disparities and really focusing on women from working class communities, women from the community that are directly impacted, and really trying to support them in their political leadership. So I'm excited to be here tonight, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Mayor Hollingsworth, it's your turn.
It is, and I love being in company of such fascinating and phenomenal women. It is great to meet all of you here and see some of you again. My name is Candace Hollingsworth. I am now former mayor of the city of Hyattsville and national co-chair for an organization called Our Black Party, which is a political organization that was established to help advance policies at every level of government that support the Black agenda. Outside of that, my day job is I work as the director of AmeriCorps programs for an organization called the Corps Network, which is a national member association of service and conservation corps across the country. And we are responsible for helping, well, I'm responsible for helping those organizations engage up to 1,000 young people who are out of school and out of work in national service as a pathway to post-secondary and employment opportunities. I always say that I fall into things. I ran for mayor when we moved to Hyattsville about 6 months after we moved here, had no idea or no interest in running for office, but saw a problem that I felt I could fix. And just like with many things for me, I get involved and I say, hey, I'm willing to do that, and then somehow end up being in charge. But it is wonderful, and I think probably one of the greatest gifts to be in a position of responsibility where you see something that could be different or should be different in your community, and you have the ability to make that happen. It was wonderful serving as a city of Hyattsville's mayor for 6 years and on the council for 4 years. I am proudly from the South. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. My parents are from Mississippi. I've been living in Maryland for the past 15 years. I'm a wife, I'm a mom to 2 wonderful children, Ellis and Zora, who are, my son is 15, my daughter is 12. They challenge and push me every single day. I did not realize, Soror Lewis, that you are also a soror, member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I attended Emory University in Atlanta, where I got my bachelor's degree in African American Studies. And I attended Georgetown University here in DC, where I got my master's in public policy, focusing on education, family, and social policy. I love Black people, I love Black women, and I am just really excited for our conversation.
Thank you. I know folk can't wait to hear you all. And the next one, Delegate Brenda Thiam. I've been practicing this name all day long, and did I get it pretty close?
Practice makes perfect.
And I did not look at your full resume until today. Now, I have some friends on, and they know what I'm going to say now. I am an Eagle from North Carolina Central. I had no idea that you were. Okay, that's good. Delegate,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Good evening, my sisters. What a joy it is to be among such a phenomenal panel of women. I mean, whew, it's kind of making me tear up a little bit. I mean that literally. Wow, it's just amazing to hear your stories thus far. But yes, I am Delegate Dr. Brenda Thiam, and I too am from North Carolina, born and raised. Yes, hooray, way to go, way to go. Southern girls, sweet tea and collard greens. So yes, I moved here in 1995, so it's been a long time now, but I still claim North Carolina as my home. I have been a delegate only for a short time, since October of 2020. And I'm sure we'll get into that story, how all that came to be. I certainly didn't aspire to be a politician. I've been a special educator for all of my professional life, working with children with autism as a special ed teacher, working as a director of education at a non-public school in Montgomery County for students with autism. I have a bachelor's degree from North Carolina Central University, Maryland, and obtained my master's degree at the University of Maryland College Park in education with a certification in special ed. And then I decided to pursue my studies a little bit further for higher learning, and I obtained my doctorate degree, my PhD in special education from Capella University. And I didn't stop there because I have a propensity for pain or learning. I also received a postgraduate certificate from Penn State University in applied behavior analysis. I'm married to a wonderful husband from Guinea, West Africa. We have a 15-year-old daughter, and I am just excited to be with you, wonderful women on tonight, my sisters. So I'm looking forward to some good conversation.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. And let's get into some questions now. I'm going to ask you to answer in the same order that you introduced yourself, because I want to hear everybody's answer on this one. What propelled your interest in the field of work that you've chosen? And we will start with Chair Yvette Lewis.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting because I had just come off of touring overseas and doing my opera thing. And what I did, I developed a program for children that introduced kids to opera. And 7 states ended up bringing my program to their children. I wrote music for kids, little operas for kids that you can find on Amazon and iTunes to this day. But it was a way to introduce young people to opera. And it was the 2000 election. And it was the night of the returns. And I had to get up, and I was working in New Jersey. And I watched the returns all night long. And the more I watched the returns, the more confused and upset I got, because I knew that election was not right. I knew something was not right. But I also saw how emotional people were, how emotionally upset they were. And I realized that I couldn't really participate fully in that emotion because I hadn't invested in that election. I voted, but I had not invested. And I didn't like the way I felt. I felt that I maybe could have done more. I could have done something else. And it was then that I decided that I wanted to participate in our democracy, because at that point I felt it wasn't working for ordinary people, because too many ordinary people had participated, and a hanging Chad kept them from having their voices heard, if you remember the 2000 election. So I realized then that I could no longer be a bystander. And I started to participate and volunteer in campaigns, in candidates that I believed in. I started organizing and working in campaigns that I believed in. But we were living in Michigan at the time. And when my husband was transferred back here, I immediately got involved in the campaign of Kwesi Mfume, who was a friend.
Mm-hmm.
But I also learned in that campaign that even if your candidate doesn't win, you don't take your marbles and go home. You stay in the fight, because if you believe in the values of the party that you support, you stay in the fight no matter what. So I continued to stay in the fight to put forth the values that I felt the Democratic Party represented. But it was Barack Obama on steroids for me. And it was once Barack Obama came on the scene, I signed on with him immediately and began to work in his campaign. And went even so far as to go down for training in Virginia, which I've never done in my life, working on a campaign, and then coming back to Maryland and opening offices and, doing phone banks and canvases and all of the stuff that I'd never done. But I was so committed to this person and what I felt he represented, not only for me as a Black woman, but what he would say about our country if he could pull this off, which he did. But immediately after he won, I saw that that wasn't enough, because there were forces out there that were determined to keep him from being a successful president. So we continued to organize here in Maryland. I founded a group with some friends called Grow the Hope, where we decided that we were going to be the voice for Barack Obama. We were going to call into talk radio. We were going to send letters to the editors. We were going to do talk TV, whatever we could do. We formed Rapid Response here in Maryland. I think we had like 300 people that signed up to be a part of Rapid Response here in Maryland. And we flooded the airways, the phone lines, anything we could do to make sure that we were amplifying the president's message, especially around the Affordable Care Act. That's when we were the most active. Somehow I caught the eye of Martin O'Malley, the governor then, who felt that he wanted that same energy brought into the state party. And I was asked to be the first vice chair of the party. And I was nervous about it, but everyone around convinced me, no, this is what we need. This is what you can do. Little did I know that I would be chair a couple of months later. And it was interesting because, and I think all of us can relate to this, because as soon as I was asked about being chair, what was my first response? I don't know enough. No, I can't do this. How am I don't know what to do. But then I had to do my self-talk that I still do to this day to say, well, why not you? Why can't you do it? You figured out how to do everything else. When you decided you were going to create a program for kids, you didn't know 7 states were going to pick up your program. When you decided you were going to write music for kids, you didn't know that the music would get published and you would win a Parents' Choice Award for it. Why can't you be chair of the party? Stop with this. You can do this. And so I jumped in and I did it. And I was chair for 4 years. At that time, the longest serving chair. Most chairs last for 2 years. So I did that. And lo and behold, they invited me back. They asked me would I come back December, and I ran again. But this time I didn't have the feeling of saying no. I had the feeling of saying yes. Why? Because I had done it before. But this time I wanted to come back to see if I could do it again, but do it better. Might have thought secondly about that because I didn't know about COVID at the time. I didn't know we were going to be, like in lockdown for a year. But what that has done is inspired our creativity at the party. We've done a convention. We've done a gala. We do Black Lives Matter panels. We're having a Black History Month celebration this coming Sunday. So once again, I'm excited about what we've been able to make out of lemons. We've made some really good lemonade in really difficult circumstances and turned the party's finances around. And so once again, women, as a woman, we all, especially me, have to learn to say yes before we say no.
Say yes. Thank you. Thank you. Tiffany?
Sure. So, and I think the question is what propelled me to my interest in this work. So for me, not as direct as Yvette, Chairwoman Lewis. For me, I think I've always been a firm believer in people's movements. And I think a lot of that has to do with my heritage in the American South, and both of my parents coming up in the South, though they came up north during the second Black migration. So I grew up in New Jersey. So just sort of always had that experience as a part of my ethos, and social justice as a part of my ethos. Went off to Yale University where, and I didn't mention this, but where I met my sweetie, my husband. And I have 2 little boys, Solomon and Isaiah. So hopefully you don't hear them come in, but so that's where I met my sweetie. And while at Yale studied African-American studies, again, just always found myself connected to people's movements and organizing. While at Yale, we started the Yale Black Political Forum. A part of that came out of, you had the Yale Political Forum where, because it's Yale, you get all these speakers on campus. And so when they decided to have a discussion about affirmative action, they had William Buckley and all these folks on one side. And then on the other side of the issue of all the people they can invite, they decided to invite the boxing promoter, Don King, right? So how insulting can that be? So several of us started the Yale Black Political Forum, had these amazing, folks on campus, from Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, Sister Soldier, Lonnie Guinier. This was in the mid-90s. And in fact, one of the guys that I started the Yale Black Political Forum with is a guy who's still a close friend to this day, Jamie Harrison, who who recently ran for Senate. And I see that someone went to the Yale Black Solidarity Conference. That I hope you enjoyed it. My two best friends started that. So that was just at a time at Yale, and hopefully it's the same, but during that time, you just had very strong Black leadership in the student body. And I would like to think that I was a part of that. And I think that's sort of the first lesson is sometimes I think when we network, we think of networking sort of vertically, but it's also that networking horizontally a lot of times, right? So from there, again, it propelled me to do international work and just work with, directly impacted communities. And although I've been, blessed to be in sort of halls of power and among those who seemingly have power, but sort of my roots are, my ethos is with the directly impacted. So that's just always been the nature of my work. And then literally got a call a little over a year ago from a recruiter saying, we heard about you, we've seen you somewhere speak or read some article you written, whatever it was, they found me and said, we would love for you to run Reflect Us. And at the time, I said, well, I could do it, but it really would have to be a coalition because, again, I do believe in the power of people and coming together. And what attracted me to Reflect Us was the fact that you have women across the country. So in our organization, there are 9 organizations, and everyone from Higher Heights, who is sort of the engine or one of the engines getting Black women elected. Latinas Represent, focusing on Latina women. Ignite, which focuses on young women. Vote, Run, Lead, which focuses on women who are a bit more mature in the process. It is also a nonpartisan organization. And so it has really allowed me to think about, when we're thinking about power, and in particular political power in this country, how do we just not talk about sort of upside down revolution where it's the same system? So now instead of one group on the top, you just replace that with another group, be it in this case women. But how do we really talk about real transformative change and really making sure that those who are sort of at the systematic bottom of the country get political power? And that's what I'm in particular excited about with the work of Reflect Us, and again with our work with working class women and women from directly impacted communities.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Candace?
Always so interesting to hear where stories kind of align, even, despite gaps in age or otherwise. For me, I always go back to probably high school. And when I was in high school, I went to a boarding school in New England. So imagine this Memphis girl going up to New Hampshire to study, and at 16. So that's a very, I grew up like the point when I'm kind of wrapping my head around who I am as a person, or at least starting to think about who I am as a person in the context of this very different environment, not to mention cold, but also just very, very white, just to be candid. And my family, I remember them being afraid. They were like, oh, she's gonna go up there and she's gonna forget who she is. And in fact, it was quite the opposite that happened. It was in those environments where I doubled down on who I am. At Exeter, we had our motto was non-civi, and that means not for oneself. And so it was in this environment where we were taught it was about community. It was about, doing things for the betterment of this world, that whatever the community is that we consider ourselves to be a part of. And then I go to Emory, where it's complete opposite, because, whether it's because it is a university environment, whether it's because it's, liberal arts school in the South, whatever the reason is, there was not as much focus on community there as I had learned to appreciate in high school. And it felt like I spent all of my time trying to curate that community. And so much so that that this initially pre-med major had a 9 a.m. biology, 8:30 a.m. biology class that she never went to. I was too focused on the extracurriculars, and my extracurriculars weren't partying. They were, sitting on commissions. It was leading the Black Student Alliance. It was all of those things that I felt like, can we create a better place here for Black students like me? Even though I won't necessarily experience the fruits of that, I think someone else should. And majoring in African American studies, our advisors had another mantra. So it's these 2 mottos that I kind of live my life by. And that one was academic excellence and social responsibility. And that we bring everything that we are to the task that we have, and we do it in service of our communities. And so those things have carried with me throughout, even though I found myself, kind of going back and forth between, as a college student and activist to being part of, the establishment things or politics to now doing something that is back more activist, is still with the same thread of wanting to make sure that we do good by Black folks. And in this moment now, when I step down from being in office, this moment now for me, what propelled me to this place is that the murder of George Floyd last year. And, I know that although I'm an activist spirit, I've never been one. I try to find, I go the academic route, the logical route. I'm trying to figure out what policies do we need to pass? What needs to change specifically? That's usually where I kind of put my energy. And as an elected official, we look at these situations like, what are we supposed to do? What can we do? What is our role in this moment? And I saw a need for, I along with some colleagues, we saw a need for elected officials to really lead on policy. Organizers are saying, community members have said what it is that they need. They've set agendas, they've delivered mandates. It is time for politicians and elected officials to really deliver on those promises, to deliver on the things that communities are asking for. And at the same time, being in office, I've experienced where, you know what's in your heart and you know what you intend to do as a Black woman in office or a Black person in office, but at the same time, you know that your electorate or the ways that you're able to stay in office, the money that finances your campaigns, all of those things are so incredibly fragile because we are Black women sometimes. And so how can we create an organization that delivers not just a mandate, but also the money and the support and the people and engine to help support and propel Black candidates even further into office and to keep them in positions of power so that they can do the work on behalf of communities that we need. So that's really what motivates me now. It's what propelled me in this moment. Who's to say where it's going to be 2 years from now? But I'm certain that those two mottos will likely still be at play.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Miss Brenda. You're next.
Yes, thank you very much.
Delegate.
Well, no problem. My story isn't is too exciting or too riveting. I will say that I've taken a few turns to the left, wrong way, to the right. No, that's the wrong way. U-turn. No, I'm going backwards. Go straight. So my avenue and my path has been very windy, I'll say. I knew that my mom was adamant that I was going to college after high school, but I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do when I graduated. I wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. But through much encouragement and pretty much telling me what I was going to do, I went to college. I applied to a few universities, and my oldest brother attended and graduated from North Carolina Central University. So I figured, well, okay, may as well follow in his footsteps, So I applied to North Carolina Central University and I went, and I spent quite a few years struggling with what major, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I want to do when I graduate? So much so that I started college in 1997, fresh 18-year-old in August of 1987. Well, I turned 18 in September. I didn't graduate until December of 1994. Changing majors, nursing major, biology major, so many majors, so many credits, until my mom finally said, look, girl, you need to make up your mind what you're going to do and finish school. So now during my mid-20s, 21, 22, I had been working part-time because mom had pretty much cut me off. She was like, that's it. I gave you 4 years. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do, but you're going to pay for the rest of this schooling. So I started working part-time in group homes with people with autism and people with disabilities. And I enjoyed that work. I couldn't change my major because I was too far into physical education, major in biology to change to education. But I knew that I had found my niche working with people with disabilities. I enjoyed that work. I look forward to going to work in the evenings. So I decided, let me just get my degree, my bachelor's degree, and focus on obtaining a master's degree in education and becoming a teacher in special ed. And that's what I did. When I graduated from North Carolina Central University in 1994, I worked for a year and I decided to move. And when I moved here in 1995, I worked for a couple of years and then I applied to the University of Maryland, College Park to enter into their Master's of Education program to obtain my certification to teach special ed elementary, because I enjoy working with younger children, primary age children. And I taught special ed for many years, children with very challenging needs, developmentally, behaviorally, academically, children who are non-vocal. They don't have the vocal abilities to share their wants and needs and just simply asking for a drink of water. They may do that by hitting themselves, biting their hand, biting you. And I enjoy that work. I enjoy that work whenever I work, really trying to work and help these students communicate effectively. So I did that for many years, teaching in the classroom. And then I decided to pursue administration, and I became a director of a school for children with autism. But that has been my my work since, I was in my early 20s, and I'm now 50 plus. And up until November of 2019, that was still my work, working with the school system in Washington County in their special education department as the autism specialist, and supporting teachers and working with teachers to help them work more effectively for students with autism. So that's, and so much so, I didn't stop there. Although I quit working with the school system, I did start a nonprofit organization. I'm in the process of finalizing some paperwork with the state to open a nonprofit organization for adults with autism. So providing residential homes in the community for adults with autism, and supporting them during their efforts of working out in the community and finding employment. So I plan for that to be my work when I'm not in session. So that's pretty much where I am right now, being a CEO of my nonprofit organization in Washington County.
Okay, thank you all so very much. Let's try another one. It has been said that men are more likely to run for elected positions than women because women are more apt to be doing other things and dotting every I and crossing every T. And have you found that to be true? And I think I will go to Madam Chair.
Well, there is some truth to that, I'm sure, but I think just as prevalent are sexist gender stereotypes and expectations that prevent women, especially Black women, from running for office. Now, fortunately, our society is changing and we're getting better, but women and girls have been told no for so long, but now we really are getting to the place where we're saying yes. Like I said before, it's all about saying yes, that they can run for office, you can be president. You can be a senator, you can be a mayor, you can be a delegate, you can be. We're getting to the place where we're hearing that more and more, but nothing helps better than representation for millions of women and girls to be able to see someone like, I don't know, our vice president, for example, to say that, that can be me on the stage. But we still have work to do because there's still so many sexist gender expectations that exist, whether it's how women are supposed to look or how we're supposed to dress or how we're supposed to talk. And so we need to end these stereotypes and these disparities that prevent women from running for office. First of all, those of us that are out here doing it proudly, mentoring others, bringing others along, reaching back, and helping others. That's one way I had people to reach back and to help me. Even when I became chair, women at the DNC who reached back and brought me along. And I'm trying to do the same thing in this position as chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, which is why, that is so very important. I often joke with younger people. I tell them, I need someone to take care of me when I'm in the nursing home. So I've got to train you. I've got to make sure that you know what you're doing, right? I say it jokingly, but I say it lovingly, because there will come a time when I'm not on the stage and I will have to relinquish and turn this over, and I will have to trust that those that come behind me are able to do what they're able to do. They can't do it if we don't show them, if we don't teach them, if we don't help lead the way. One of the things that I tell young people all the time, when you step out there, know your craft, because you often don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So make sure you are ready. Well, how do they get ready? We help them get ready. So those women, those of us that are in these positions, whatever our position is, the position, if we are in the space of leadership, we should share this space, train others to occupy this space, so that when we leave this space, we know that it's in good hands.
Thank you. Thank you. Delegate, I would like for you to tackle that one as well. It has been
Yes.
said that men are more likely to run for elected office than women for a variety of reasons.
I attended a training probably about 3 years ago when I was just kind of getting that itch to do more for my community. I attended the training, and some statistics that was shared by the facilitator stated that certainly men are more apt to run for office than women are. And not only that, if the man loses, he is more apt to run for office versus the woman. The woman loses, she says, that's it, I'm not trying again. But men will go on 2, 3, 8, 12 times running for an office. They'll keep losing, but they'll keep going back. Women, we try one time, we don't win, we give up. I'm not sure why that's the case. Maybe men are just a little bit more stubborn about losing, maybe a little bit more prideful than women are. I don't know, but I thought that was very interesting data that was shared. And I can say that I didn't start out running as delegate. Around December of 2019, I wanted to do more in my community. And the conversations that I was having with my husband, well, shall I say more complaining conversations, because I was doing a lot of complaining about what wasn't working in my community, what we needed more of, what we needed to get rid of, what's not working. And he had the novel idea and the audacity to say, why don't you just run for office? And I thought, I don't want to run for office. I just want to keep complaining about what's not working. And, I gave it more thought. Instead of complaining, be at the table to make some decisions about what's happening in Hagerstown. I live in Hagerstown. So to be a part of change, I got to be at the table having those conversations to shift and to make change happen. So I actually tossed my head in the ring for city council. I ran a very structured and talking about dotting I's and crossing T's. I mean, I was so anal. I probably wore my poor campaign manager out and my treasurer, because I was just so head focused on doing things right, doing things perfect, not looking bad in front of the camera, making sure that I say the right thing, I do the right thing. So it was a very hard campaign, not hard in the sense of challenging, but because I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, probably too much pressure to do things right. You got to be perfect. It has to look good. And certainly when COVID came and just kind of cut all of the people that were running for candidacy, cut us off at the knees, and you just kind of, now you're kind of held at the realm of everything was virtual at that point. Now, how are you going to shift your campaign to the virtual platform? I'm a people person. I love going out, shaking people's hands, hugging them, knocking on their door. I look forward to door knocking, which a lot of people don't like that part of campaigning, but I love that part. And when the opportunity presented itself, the state delegate presented itself, I really had some difficulty about, do I give up the city council race? So many people have contributed to my campaign, campaigning with me, door knocking financially. Am I going to let them down if I consider the state delegate position? But I really was very prayerful about the move that I was thinking about, because I don't want to ever move in my own vein or do things in my own right. I'm very prayerful to God about, what is it that you want me to do? What can I do to be used? How can I be a vessel? And it hit me in the middle of the night. I woke up because I was thinking so hard about it and praying about which way should I go? Continue city council, pursue the delegate position. And I felt like God was speaking to me, because it was such an epiphany. I can use you more at the state level than I can at the local level. So for me, I woke up that morning, I immediately started the application, submitted it, and here I am, history maker. Had no idea that I was the first in this journey, that I was struggling about making a decision. Should I, shouldn't I? So, it's just amazing how where I am now, that I feel comfortable in this role, though it's a huge learning curve, because I'm not a politician, but I am a politician. So it's been a wonderful adventure, but certainly, yes, dotting the I and crossing the T's. I feel like I am my worst critic. I probably shouldn't be, but I hold myself to high standards and high regard. Sometimes it can I get on my own nerves sometimes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Danita, I hope you're watching the time, because I am not, and I could listen to these ladies talk all night long, so you're going to have to stop me. But it's interesting that you mentioned losing, because I do want to kind of have someone take a look at that. And Candace, I don't want to bring it up, but you did run a campaign and you did lose. And what happens when you're on the losing end? Because you either win or you lose. And what happens? How did you handle that, Candace?
This is a thing, and in talking with Sor Danita about this program, it was one of the things that I really hoped to have an opportunity to talk about, because I think as much as we prepare women or attempt to prepare women for office, and it's wonderful that we do the work of boosting each other up in the ways that we know that we might not necessarily do for ourselves. Women have this incredible way of being, if I can't stand myself up, some other women can. And I think that's the beauty of sisterhood. And at the same time, it shields us from a reality when it comes to politics that it's a 50% chance you lose. Those are the two options. You might win or you lose. And so you can't go into a race thinking you're going to lose. But I do wish I went into a race prepared for myself on how to manage losing. That was probably one of the biggest life lessons I have had to date, which is, what type of person are you when you lose? Chairman Lewis talked about, what do you do when your candidate loses? What happens when you are the candidate? You also have to be your better person. You still have to give yourself time to heal and to kind of lick your wounds a little bit. I think often about, our great woman, Stacey Abrams, right? This woman, ran a race, put her all into it, was also building organizations, had done great work in Georgia as leader. And I remember when I met her at South by Southwest in 2018. And I was just like, how did you do it? And we both kind of got a little teary-eyed, because when I was looking at her and seeing just how on she was continuing to be, my one question was, have you rested yet? Have you taken a real moment to be with yourself? And, I don't know that answer for her. She knows the answer, but it is something that I think about, because I took a considerable amount of time licking my wounds. And and I had to realize that that was my ego showing up in a way that I was not prepared for. When I first ran for office in 2011, I remember telling folks, because I was running against a 32-year incumbent, I felt the odds were I was going to lose. And so at that time, I approached the race and I said often, I'm going to run. What's the worst that can happen? I lose. So what? I'm okay with that. Well, when you get into position and you feel like you've established a name for yourself, or you feel like you've got a reputation you've got to manage, then suddenly you become a little bit more protective of who you are and how you show up. And you think that that's what people look at you as, but it's not. Losing is part of this process of getting to create a better world, because in a democracy, the people get to choose. Now, whether or not you feel they have the most information when they choose, or whether or not you feel they chose right or wrong, the people still get to choose. And it's important, especially if you're convicted and you're committed to doing the work that got you involved in the first place. Don't disappear. You may decide that that office might not be the one for you, but still find ways to contribute your best gifts in the areas that you see your community needs the most.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Miss Tiffany, we have not forgotten you. You're next on the list. What are some of the ways that women can get involved when they want to run for an office? And what resources are available for training?
Great. All great questions. The first thing I would say, and I know these ladies haven't had the experience, there's maybe more of a personal route, but with respect to the organizations that are out there that are put here for this purpose, ReflectUs, my organization, reflect.us. As I said, we're a coalition of 9 organizations, training women, providing leadership development, everything from how to fund your campaign, how to choose a campaign team, what we call imposter syndrome, which is what you were talking about a bit earlier in terms of feeling as if you're not ready yet, you're not prepared to run. We talk about all that good stuff. Being that we are a coalition of 9 organizations, we have something for everyone. We have Higher Heights. We also have Ignite for younger women. We have She Should Run for women who are coming out of other careers and realizing I need to run for office. So I would say, please, check us out. We have a fellowship program that we just launched that's looking at women from directly impacted communities. Once this is over, Candace, you and I definitely have to get together because I'm super interested in the work that you're doing. But we have a fellowship program that we've launched as well. So there's always that. And then there's always, I think, never underestimate. So let me back up. Organizationally, there's ReflectUs, right? There's the organizations that are part of ReflectUs. And then there's other ones as well. There's Emerge out there, right? Which is more, left leaning as well. And they do great work. And then depending on what part of the country you're in, there's, different organizations doing that. With that being said, I always tell people never underestimate the power of your own personal network, right? So a lot of times you're going to find that your greatest support comes from those who know you, right? And so the one advice that I would give to anyone who wants to run for office, who wants to run a campaign, appointments are also another big area to get involved in elected position, or rather in political position, and they're not elected positions. So always think about that, but go to your network first, figure out who you know, figure out who they know. I mean, the one good thing about, Black folk, I would say, and again, this is a generalization, but there's some truth to all generalizations, is that, we're a communal people. And we've had to be both intentionally and sometimes not so intentionally, just because circumstances have been what they are. So go back to the community or stay in the community. And there's a lot of support in the community. And then the last thing I would say is, reach out. I mean, you have Chairwoman Lewis here, you have Candace, you have Delegate, and I may not say it right, Thiam, I hope I'm saying it right.
Bam.
Thank you. Yes. And all these wonderful sisters. And, the one thing that I have found is that, and I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, so I got to put that in. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know.
This was planned. 2 sisters one side and 2 sisters from the other.
We tend to be a bit subtler soror, but even with that being said, I'm always so encouraged by any position that I've gone from high school to college to the UN to wherever I found myself. There's always been a sister somewhere on the other end that was looking out, right? Or a sister somewhere on the other end that was supporting. So as you know, and I'm a Christian, so you know the word says never never underestimate small beginnings. So what I would say is, you know, very importantly is think about your network, think about who's in your circle, think about those sisters, those brothers that are out there, and get your support network going. And if you don't win, run again.
Yeah.
And if you lose, run again and run again. To the sister's point here, Candace, run again. I mean, we're looking at, you know, what just happened out in Missouri, right? And how Cori Bush, right? She lost, she ran again and she won. So run again. But please reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you to national resources. And then you have these dynamic sisters on here that can also connect you to state-based resources.
And I'm glad you used the term, thank you so very much, dynamic sisters. It has really been hard for me to just sit here because I'm used to jumping up and down and saying amen, amen, amen. But I know that my good sister would not appreciate my acting that way on this call. But at any rate, I think we're probably at the end. I don't know whether we have time for another question. Danita, what do you think?
No, I think we're going to wrap up right here.
Oh,
I know. It goes so fast.
but it really has been wonderful asking you your questions and listening to you. You really give me hope. Delegate Brenda was not born when I graduated from North Carolina.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I'm in that age
But you're
category.
only 50, 55, really?
When I see beautiful young women, I just get so excited, and it's just, you just fill my heart with joy. And I know that we're in a good place, that I don't have to worry, that I have to keep living just so that to hold my space, because there's room for so many beautiful sisters. And thank you so very much. You've just been amazing. Danita?
Yes, thank you indeed. This panel warms my heart. It's so encouraging, so inspiring. You all are doing great work in the community. You're doing great work on behalf of the community. So thank you so very much for spending time with us this evening. And thank you for sharing your experiences with all of us. I also want to thank members of the Board of Directors, especially Kaylin Thomas and Ida Jones, and Maryland Women's Heritage Center Executive Director, Diana Bailey, for their support. I thank each of you who came out tonight. And I thank One Due North LLC for providing the broadcast production this evening. Before we adjourn with our closing performance, I would like to announce the recipients of our book door prizes. The first book is Baltimore Civil Rights leader Victorine Q. Adams, The Power of the Ballot. And the winner of the book is Tamika Bumbry. Congratulations, Tamika Bumbry. The winner of the second book, Wild Women of Maryland, is Avery Walker. Congratulations, Avery. I'm sure that each of you will find these books inspiring, and we will get them to you through the mail. And now, please join me for a closing performance by the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it us march on till victory. Let us march on till victory. Let us march on till victory. His
Amazing. Wow.